Wasn't me, it was the boot. Okay, good Shabbos, everybody.
Shabbos.
So it is our final service here for this year, which means I want to do something special. I want to make it nice and strange and unique. I want to give you guys something to think about and gossip about and talk about this holidays. And luckily it's Parashat Vayishlach. Now in this week's Parashah, of course the famous thing that we all know it for is the wrestling with the angel, right? The angel, whatever angel that is. Tradition actually says it's the angel of this nation of Edom. He wrestles with the angel, gets blessed, and is on his way to meet his brother. He meets up with his brother Esau, and it was very anticlimactic. Instead of having a big fight and a war, they ended up hugging and kissing it out and went on their ways. And eventually he goes up to Shechem with his family, and then Shechem, two of his sons, wipe out the whole population of all those Shechemites. Then his wife Rachel, the beloved wife Rachel, dies and gives birth to their son called Benjamin. He was going to be called Benoni, but he heard about all the name changes going on in South Africa. So they changed it to Benjamin. So, let me ask you guys a question. Show of hands. How many of you believe in vampires and werewolves?
Lower your arm.
Lower your arm. Your mom's looking at you. So that's the topic I want to discuss today. Do we find vampires and werewolves in the Bible? Please forgive me if this is a bit weird for you guys. I'm just trying to teach you guys. There is a lesson here at the end of it, so don't worry about that. Don't get too scared or anything. Now, of course, vampires and such things, they've made their way into pop culture. So many of us know about it now, right? Those of you that are a bit more elderly, you guys grew up with Count Dracula. Those of us who are younger, I see the shiny outfit there, we are familiar with Twilight, right? And those vampires and those things. It's everywhere now. There's movies, there's books, there's even kids' shows. I have to be careful what my children watch on TV because there's little vampire shows as well for little kiddies. So it's absolutely everywhere right now. And I remember growing up in the school that I went to. There was a while that I was in a Christian school before they kicked me out. There was a guy in our school who was actually in my sister's class who literally believed he was a vampire. Like literally. He literally believed he was a vampire. He lived his life like that, and he told people this was his case. He ended up in the psychiatric ward. He was in Kroondakkies for a long time. He was in asylum for a long time, and he's had a lot of mental issues since then. But this was a guy that was in our school that we grew up with. He was in our house, actually. I don't know if you know this. He actually came to one of my sister's birthday parties. And I thought, is that the guy? It's funny, because he wasn't hanging from the roof or anything. But anyway, so maybe he's the reason why we got so many mosquitoes in Pretoria, right? He's the Lord of the Mosquitoes or something. Anyway. So this is something that, it's in the culture out there. We hear about it a lot. And in this week's parashah, we might just find a vampire. Who do you guys think it is, Jacob or Esau? Esau. It can't be Team Jacob, eh? Okay. So let's talk a little bit about Esau. What do we know about Esau? How did he look when he was born? Yeah, maybe he was a werewolf. Hairy and scary, like a goat. Like an animal. Someone else in the Bible also became like an animal. That was old King Nebuchadnezzar. Remember him? Right, and he started eating stuff. The term for what he got there, the mental disease, is actually the name for what you call a werewolf. Anyway, so Esau seems to come out as a werewolf and covered in blood and red. Why does he love blood so much? Blood. Maybe he's a vampire. Right? So that's the first thing we want to look at with him. What was Esau known for? What was his main characteristic? Hunting. He was a hunter. What did he use to hunt? What tool did he use to hunt? He wasn't Shaka Zulu, don't say spear. Eh? What did you miss? Say again? A bow and arrow maybe, but that was Nimrod. There was something else he used. The Torah tells us the way that Esau hunted. Esau hunted with his mouth. It says Esau hunted with his mouth. And we've given a drush about this in the past, that he used his words to trick people. This is why he tricked his father into loving him. He used words to make it sound like he was this righteous and pious son. He said to his father, how do we tithe when it comes to salt? How do we tithe when it comes to all these extra things that are not even required in the Torah? To make it sound like he was interested in the Torah, but actually he was just buttering up his father with sweet words. He was hunting with his mouth. But you can also read it as follows. He was literally hunting with his mouth. Right? So there's another little hint at him. Of course, why do we not eat wild hunted meat in kashrut as kosher? Why is hunted meat not kosher? We're only allowed to eat domesticated animals in Torah's kashrut. Why are we not allowed to go hunting? in Judaism. What happens to the meat? What part of the meat are we not allowed to eat? Besides the little thing that we learned about in this week's parasha. The blood! It's forbidden to eat blood. So we're not allowed to go hunting. We're only allowed to eat domesticated animals in Judaism. Esau was a hunter. Why? Because he loved the taste of blood. Because if you don't properly kosher slaughter the animal, all the blood goes into the meat and spoils the meat. And he loved it. So much so that when he came back from one of his hunting trips and he saw his brother making a nice soup or whatever it was, what was the first thing he saw when he saw the soup? He didn't ask, is that vegetarian? Is it pea soup? He said, give me some of that red stuff. Why? Because it looked like he was going to drink a bowl of blood. Once again. See where we're going with this? Let's talk about the angel that wrestled with Jacob all night long. We said earlier, the tradition is that is the angel of which nation? Edom, the descendants of Esau. What time did the angel have to leave? Before sunrise. The Torah says it was twilight and the angel had to leave. Even the angel of Edom couldn't stand the sunlight. He had to leave before he gets burnt to a crisp. And I think the final nail in the coffin, excuse the pun, is in this week's parasha, Genesis chapter 33, verse 4. Listen to this, the encounter between Jacob and his brother Esau. It says the following, 33, verse 4. Esau ran to meet him, hugged him, threw his arms around him and around his neck, and kissed him. And they wept. Okay, so what's going on here? Kissing on the neck? Yeah, that's not a vampire thing necessarily, right? Those of you that are newlyweds, for example, you still kiss each other on the neck. Now, when you look at a Torah scroll, the word that's written there for the word kissed, for kissed him on his neck, is the word Vayishlach. But every single Torah scroll in the world has got a special little thing written on the scroll. You might have seen this in the past, we might have discussed this in the past as well. When it comes to this word, for some reason, the Torah doesn't have any vowels, it's only consonants, right? We have to know the vowels by tradition, by learning the tunes. This word has 6 random little dots on top of the word. Why does it have 6 little random dots on top of the word? Let me read to you what the Midrash Rabbah says. It's got a few opinions as to why we have these random dots on top of the word kissed. Some of them say it was to show how sincere Esau actually was when he came and kissed his brother. Others see right through his facade. This is what it says in the Midrash Rabbah 78:10. The dots indicate that Esau did not intend to kiss Jacob, but rather he intended to bite his brother's neck. Blood, 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 blood. But, listen to this. This is what happened to Jacob to protect him. But the neck of Jacob, our forefather, miraculously turned into solid marble. Have you heard of someone being stiff-necked? And consequently, the teeth of that villain Esau became blunted. So his fangs became blunted. And why does the Torah say, then they wept? Rather, it says this one, Jacob, he wept because of the pain in his neck. And that one, Esau, wept because of the pain in his teeth. And Rabbi Abahu, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, derives this interpretation from Song of Songs, chapter 7, verse 5, that says, your neck is like a tower of ivory, and your eyes are like the pools in Cheshbon. Right. So there you have it, guys. The story behind the story. Now, I realized this week that every single one of us technically went through a Esau vampire phase in our lives. Do you know that? Have you guys ever had the yearning for blood? No, but you have had the yearning for biting someone when you were a toddler. It happened in this week in my house. It's been happening constantly. When you were a toddler, you go through a phase of biting your siblings, right? Now, little Mordechai back there, I think he's asleep now. He's busy teething at the moment. So it's an absolute nightmare for us. We're not sleeping at all. He's getting a new tooth every day, and he loves to sink those teeth into the siblings. So much so that Judah's not going to be swimming at all this summer because I don't want him to take off his shirt in public. His back is full of bite marks. And in fact, just this morning, lo and behold, his brother bit him right here in the neck. You can even see it right now. He's got a red mark right there where his brother bit him in the neck. Now, when you do this as a child, right, it's the weirdest thing because you do it to express every emotion. Of course you bite when you're angry or irritated, but even if you get overexcited and joyful, you end up biting your siblings as well. It's the weirdest thing. It just naturally happens because of the teething. You're looking for something to stick your teeth into, right? And unfortunately, the first person you find is your siblings. So every time that he's bitten his brother this past few weeks, I've had to make him go back to his brother, apologize, and give his brother a kiss. Because not like Esau, we need to know the difference between a bite and a kiss. Okay, so hopefully we'll fix this before he goes to preschool. But yeah, pray for us. Okay, now kissing and biting, where a kiss turns into a bite, as we read here with the story of Esau and Jacob, actually happens again in the Bible, in the Gospels, in the New Testament. A very famous story of what happens the night before Yeshua's crucifixion in the Garden of Gethsemane. Because what happens there in Gethsemane? Does Yeshua get a kiss? From who? Judas. All right, so Judas brings the soldiers because he's going to sell Yeshua out, and he says to them, I'm not going to point to the guy because then it'll be too obvious, but the guy that I go up to and give a kiss, he's the one you want to arrest. And he goes in and does this, and it turns out that his kiss also turns into very much a bite towards Yeshua. Now, what's very noteworthy about what happens there in Gethsemane is, what does Peter do when the Romans eventually come closer? Picks up his sword and cuts off the ear of the guy. If it was Mike Tyson, he would have bitten the ear. Right? But Peter cuts off the ear of the Roman, which is kind of like payback for that bite that old Esau, the ancestor of the Romans, because of course the Romans come from Edom, it's payback for exactly what Esau did to our forefather Jacob. But what does Yeshua do? Yeshua says, those who live by the sword will die by the sword. Sounds very much like Esau. Okay, how did Esau die, by the way? There's a deep midrash that tells us the grandson of Jacob killed him with a wooden stick, which is how you kill vampires as well, by the way. Anyway, so there's a whole story about that. We'll study that some other day. So Yeshua, instead of doing that, Yeshua fixes the guy's ear. Why? Because Yeshua realizes that he just got a bite from Judas and the Romans are going to come taking, but he knows that it's necessary. The whole point of Yeshua's suffering is for the reconciliation of mankind. And he understood that concept. The reconciliation of mankind with God. So in a sense, what happens in the Garden of Gethsemane actually plays out in this week's parasha. I don't know if you've thought about this. Because what does Yeshua do all night before the crucifixion? He prays. Another word for praying all night is wrestling with God. Just like Jacob did with the angel of Hashem. Or with Hashem himself, depending on which translation you like to follow. So Yeshua himself was up all night wrestling with God, asking God, does this have to happen? Is there another way out? Can this cup pass from me? He's fighting, he's grabbing on for dear life, just like Jacob was with an angel, holding on to that angel's ankle, saying, please give me your blessing. Yeshua was praying so intensely and wrestling with this idea with God that he actually started to sweat blood because of that intensity. Sweating blood, only to be betrayed by a kiss or a bite the next morning at sunrise. See the similarities between the two stories. So there's a double lesson for us here that we have to learn from both of these stories. Firstly, we have to learn the lesson. It's a warning for us against people. You shouldn't be tricked by people appearing as friends who are actually foes. They come at you all kissy-kissy, thinking they're going to hug you and kiss you, and then when you look away, they bite at your heels. Right? The nation of Israel is very familiar with this ploy. Just look at all the ceasefire deals and the peace treaties they're trying to make us sign. Why? Just so they can restock their weapons and fight us again. It's the exact same story. People kiss up to you now, but behind it all, they've got wicked intentions. Listen to what the book of Proverbs says about this very concept. This is Proverbs chapter 27, verse 6. Proverbs 27, verse 6. It says, wounds from a friend are received as well meant. Why would a friend wound you? To warn you about something, right? It's like giving a paksla. You do it now for the good of the person, right? So wounds from a friend are received as well meant, but an enemy's kiss is insincere. Don't trust the enemy when they're kissing up to you. When the government starts giving you 350 rand a month for free, there's an intention behind it. They're kissing you up for a reason. Okay, listen to what Yeshua says. So Yeshua says a similar thing to us in Matthew chapter 7, verse 15. And listen to this one. I think he's pointing out something to us. Matthew 7, verse 15. Yeshua says, beware of the false prophets. They come to you wearing sheep's clothing, but underneath they are hungry wolves. Man wolves. We found our we found our man-wolves in the Gospels as well. Yeshua was telling us that's exactly what these people are like. They're like a bunch of werewolves. When you don't look, then they turn into wolves. But when you're looking, then they look like innocent little sheep. Just wait until the full moon comes out and you'll see who they really are. So the lesson is, don't get butted up too easily by people that are kissing up to you. The world is full of Judases and Esau's. They talk nice words to you, blah, 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 blah. But what's going to happen at the end of the day? They're going to suck you dry, just like a vampire. So that's the first lesson. The second lesson we learned from the story is something from our perspective, right? You yourself mustn't be like Esau and kiss up to people with bad intentions behind it. That is immature. We are grown-up human beings. That is a phase you're supposed to have when you are a toddler. You're supposed to grow out of that phase. If you do that as an adult, you're nothing better than a toddler who's biting all his siblings. But there's a deeper lesson in this as well. That we do sometimes kiss people and comfort people when what they really need is a hiding. To train people. That's another mistake we make. When someone needs reproof, it's no good you saying, "Oh, don't worry, you'll learn next time." Sometimes you need to speak up and be direct with people as well. They don't need a kiss. Sometimes they need a bite as well. For example, raising kids. Same thing with raising kids. Listen to what it says in Psalm chapter 2, verse 12. There's an interesting way of reading this verse. Psalm chapter 2, verse 12. It starts off by saying, if you kiss the son, like kiss a child, just so he won't be angry, you'll perish along the way. Have you ever seen people that have kids like this, that every time they tell the kid not to do something, they throw a tantrum? And then instead of telling the kid, "Hey, don't throw a tantrum," they give them sweets to make them stop crying. That's exactly what it's talking about here. If you kiss the son, lest he be angry, and you will perish along the way, when suddenly his anger blazes. How blessed are all who take refuge in him. So there's a lesson for us that we should be careful. Sometimes people don't need a kiss, they need to be woken up as well. Sometimes we think that we're being nice and loving towards individuals, but that kiss that you're giving them is going to turn out to be a bite in the long run, because it's going to come back and bite you in the backside. And just like Esau and Jacob, you'll both be weeping, right? You'll be weeping because this person will become a pain in your neck, and they'll be weeping because they have a permanent pain in the tooth, because they never learned the lesson when they needed to, and they keep making the same mistake over and over again. So sometimes people need reproof so that they can reflect. Another thing vampires can't do. They don't have reflections. Okay, so do we have vampires in the Bible? No, we don't, right? We don't have vampires, we don't have werewolves in the Bible, they don't even exist. But we should learn from this week's parashah what it means to wrestle with God. It is not all sunshine and roses when you wrestle with God. Jacob gets hit in the hip, walks with a limp, gets bit in the neck the following day. Yeshua, his kiss was a bite that turned into the kiss of betrayal that led to his crucifixion. Yet, Jacob returned to the promised land, the Torah tells us, fully intact, healed, complete, perfected. He came into the land of Israel with his sons and the 12 tribes. With Yeshua, even though he got bitten by old Judas, 3 days after, he was resurrected from the dead and provided us with the greatest blessing mankind has ever known, the greatest act of redemption this world has ever seen. So that's the lesson. It's not all sunshine and roses. Sometimes you're going to get bitten by a kiss, but don't give up just because of that. We need to learn to trust in God's plan to transform pain into blessings. That is something you can sink your teeth into. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.